Now that we've covered the basics of what we're going to learn here and how we're going to learn it, we're going to talk a little bit about what's required to launch a successful process improvement initiative. To do so, we need to ask and be able to answer two critical questions. How do we set the stage, and what do we need to be aware of? There's four pieces that we're going to need to understand and monitor and adjust to ensure that process improvement is successful. If we just jump straight into diagramming the process, throwing a solution over the fence, and calling it a day, well, that's not going to work so well. So let's learn what needs to work well. So to really prepare ourselves to launch into this project and get it done right, there's four areas that we're going to cover. The first is we're going to learn how to identify an area of improvement. We're going to learn how to understand and improve a company culture. As part of that, we're going to learn how to identify and manage stakeholders. In any process, there are several different types of people in an organization who can really either impact or accelerate your project. So we're going to learn about that. And finally, we're going to learn how to create and instill this sense of urgency, the sense of we need to fix the problem and get this thing right. And it's important to kick off the project and give it the momentum it needs. So those are the four pieces we're going to cover. And right after that, we'll get into process mapping and diagramming. For business process improvement, a lot of people may already have an idea in mind, and they may already know what they want to improve and have something ready to launch. However, there's also a group of people who are newer to this and aren't really sure what to look for, where to start, and where the best opportunities are. And for others, there may be multiple opportunities, and they're trying to pick which one is the best to start with and understand why. In process improvement, all of these factors matter, and you want to identify the best, most feasible project to get yourself some momentum, build trust in the organization, and to ensure that you can test and apply your knowledge and then build on that. So what we're going to do next is we're going to cover 6 different areas of business process improvement to give you a flavor of what's available to look for, what's out there, and how to look for it. First up, we have quality improvements. Depending on which industry you're in, this could be critically important or a minor inconvenience. For example, if you're in the pharmaceutical industry, quality has to be almost 100% because a patient can get hurt and die because of the medicine that goes out. Meanwhile, if you're in food manufacturing, it's accepted that a good portion of each batch will need to be scrapped or reworked, and that's just part of the business model. So it all depends on what your role is and what industry you're in. But quality is something that's going to apply to all organizations. Essentially, what quality improvement covers is ensuring that the organization has identified what they want to be their acceptable range of errors or waste, and to ensure that the processes match that expectation. If it's a pharmaceutical organization and they say 100%, you got to make sure that all the pieces are in place. But again, if you're in food manufacturing, it doesn't have to be so perfect. So if you're in pharmaceuticals, quality projects are going to be all the way at the top. And this is where you're going to want to look first to ensure that your organization is on track. And then you can work on other types of projects. So consider your industry, work with your leaders to understand where do we need quality to be and why. You also want to consider that there's different types of quality improvements that can be had. You have your internal and external quality issues. Internal means a process isn't fully optimized, or the data is not being captured correctly, or sometimes different people do things in a different way. Whereas external means that what the consumer gets and what they expect to receive doesn't match the expectations that have been promised. So when you're working and looking at quality improvements, those are some of the things you want to start to consider. The second type of business process improvement project is doing a cost reduction. And in a cost reduction, of course, you're looking for ways to reduce the cost of how the business is currently doing what they do. Whether this is reducing ongoing cost, reducing one-time cost, and understanding why those things are occurring and how to stop them. There's a lot of different ways that costs add up, and there's a lot of ways that costs can hide. So this is usually a pretty high importance item for organizations, especially when the economy isn't doing so great and when competition increases and when sales start to dip. When an organization is doing fantastic, sales is the number one priority, and cost fluctuations are more or less accepted. But when the economy is not doing so great, cost is the number one focus. And the benefit here of working in cost reduction is if you can find ways to make the organization more efficient and more cost effective, you can help the organization save money so that the first thing they don't look at is cutting headcount and cutting your job or someone else's job to try and hit their targets. So if you can really understand cost reduction, understand how costs add up in your organization, you're going to have a big lever here to help your organization improve what they do and to help increase your role and your visibility in your organization to help understand and control costs. The third type of process improvement project is all about revenue generation. Everyone knows that revenue and sales is sexy, right? That's where everyone wants to be. That's what the organization talks about. Really, organizations aren't excited to cut cost. They want to increase sales. It's all about growth. So if your organization is focused on growth, there's a lot of things that you can look at here to help them in their journey. You can use process improvement to find ways to address and identify new markets, to improve the products you have, or to bundle those products and sell them in new ways, maybe to different people, different markets. And this is an area that can get you some pretty good attention, some good notice, because you're helping the organization grow the top line, which is usually the number one priority. When you work on a revenue generation project, you usually work with a different group of people than when you do with a cost reduction project or the quality reduction project, or when you work on a quality improvement project. And that's really kind of the cool thing you'll start to see here with business process improvement. It adds some variety to the type of people you work with, the type of processes that you get to understand, and how you get to learn your business and your industry and grow your skills even more. So being able to really understand cost and sales, wow, that's something you can take to the bank. For other organizations, safety is a big driver of what they do and how they do it. If you're in manufacturing chemicals or in some other caustic material, you need to ensure that your processes are 100% safe for everyone at all times. If they're not and people get hurt, the whole organization can get shut down. So if you're able to work with your organization to understand that this is a top priority, you can begin to look for areas to improve and maintain that safety culture, right? You can work on enhancing employee awareness and training, workplace standardization, documentation, training, making sure that everyone knows what the organization needs to do to ensure that the processes work and they work right all the time, that no one gets hurt and everyone goes home. A customer satisfaction process improvement initiative is related to the quality initiative, but this is the one that faces the external stakeholders who are the customers. The customer expects to get a product that looks and feels a certain way every time, and there's fluctuations in that. They're going to get upset pretty fast. So if you're working on a business process improvement initiative regarding customer satisfaction, you're going to want to really focus on the external factors. You're going to want to ensure that what goes out the door is being handled consistently. The organization's using consistent processes to measure and test what it is they're selling and shipping. With a customer satisfaction project, this is all about maximizing the customer value and making sure we have the green and happy face rather than the sad and angry face. As many people know, when a customer is unhappy, they will tell many people about it. But when a customer is content and satisfied, they'll only tell a few people. So that's why these types of projects are important to understand, okay, what are the customer expectations? How are we ensuring those expectations are met and met consistently? There's different things that you're going to want to look at here to capture your data and review your processes to ensure that the expectations are set and satisfied from both the aspect of the organization selling the product or service and the customer who's receiving it. Finally, we come to efficiency as the sixth type of business process improvement initiative. In my experience, efficiency projects have a lot more to do with the back office. For example, if you have an accounting function who's not using the right tools and software, there could be a lot of manual workarounds, duplicate work, unnecessary meetings, and frustration. So ensuring that your organization understands what they're trying to achieve and they understand what tools and processes are required to produce those results is going to be critical here. This is all about streamlining the processes, whether they're in the back office, whether in production or sales, You're trying to make sure that people can explain what they want to achieve and how they want to achieve it and ensure they have the means to do so. Now that we've covered and learned about the 6 different types of process improvement initiatives, I want to take a pause. I don't want you to pick a project just yet, but what I want is to get your mind thinking and get the gears moving on what is possible and what is probably the highest priority for you and your organization. Later on, we'll spend a lot more time talking through the process of identifying the best process improvement opportunity for you to start with. There's some clear criteria you should use to decide what you should and what you should focus on and where you should focus on first. Just because you have a lot of projects doesn't mean you have to do them all at once or you have to do the hardest one first. Or you shouldn't do the simplest one first. So we'll talk more about that in detail later. At this point, I just wanted to get you started as we lay the foundation of this course. One more piece of information for you to continue to think about is when you are looking for opportunities, where you can start is probably where you're most familiar in your area of expertise. For example, if I work in accounting, I really want to start with an accounting problem because it's something I understand. I already have the relationships with the accounting team, and I know how to drive change, and I have a pretty good understanding of what's broken and why. I wouldn't jump right to working with the production team because that's so far out of my league. However, if I start small and I work with what's at hand, I have more leeway to test my ideas, a little forgiveness, and a little bit more time to get the project set and delivered so that I could build that trust and credibility and then work on other areas in the organization. If you're thinking about what to do or where to start, keep that in mind. And it's also a good idea, if you can, to start documenting your processes or ask your coworkers to start identifying and documenting their processes to make it easier later on. When we get to process mapping, that's going to be a key element, is ensuring that the processes are fully understood. So if you can work on that early and often, it's really fantastic. Okay, I think that's enough on this topic for now. Next, we're going to jump into leadership and explain why leadership is the glue that holds this whole thing together with business process mapping and diagramming.